It also seems like the Biscuit Woman is trying to find someone. It seems like John C. Riley is trying to find someone. What
I
are you
thought
two
that.
doing?
I thought exactly the same thing.
I mean, I'm not saying beggars can't be choosers because that'd be a rude thing to say, but it's like it seems like you two are both kind of pathetic enough to work out. You know what I mean? Like maybe you guys should give it a shot.
I finally
Watched.
I finally
Watched.
I
finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
finally
Watched.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm Milan.
And this is David, and today we finally watched The Lobster.
So, I- The Lobster is about a future where everyone's on the spectrum and they cannot find. They need like government help from the government. Look at that. To find a partner, a suitable partner. Although I am glad that homosexuality in this world is like wildly accepted.
Yeah, but not bisexuality. We can't. It's caused some issues, so it's been like
Of
outlawed. We got
course.
rid of it during the summer.
Of course. And I'm sure their homosexual flag is very like one or two colored.
You know what the OP move is in this society?
Hmm.
Polygamy.
It really is, honestly, but we never kind of figure out how that goes.
Yeah, well, I mean that's kind of it's kind of a smart move. Like you see with like a lot of auteur directors will kind of create a world and maybe not spell everything out for you. I think Yorgos does this quite a bit. And
Yeah.
then in bad movies, you'll necessarily have someone kind of over explain the world we're in, or not necessarily bad, but more popcornish movies, right? And I'm sure like plenty of people can come up with examples of like that disprove what I just said, but that's fine. But my point is like that the world is created but not really explained. Then like
It,
nothing
it
about it is explained.
when you say that, it kind of reminds me of I Am Legend, where I consider that as like a pretty decent sci-fi futuristic film,
Right.
and we get within flashbacks and context, we get kind of what happens in this world, but we don't really get what happens until Will Smith comes upon the mother and her son, and he's like, "You know what happened 25 years ago with the virus escape," like that sort of stuff. And I don't know, for some reason that movie specifically came into mind,
I
where it's
love
like
that.
it's still a good movie, but you have explanation of it.
I love that movie, and if only they had just gone with the alternate ending instead of fucking it up.
What's so crazy is that I watched the alternate ending in theaters. I don't know what happened where if I watched like a special director's cut without knowing, like I went to a movie. It was the first movie that I ever went alone, like just me. I think I was 16 and my parents went to go see something else, and I'm like, I'm gonna go see this. And it was great. It was a great experience. I think I've only went to go see like two movies in my entire life alone, like completely alone. But um I and then I watched the movie on like cable. It was showing on like HBO or something, and I was like, this isn't the ending I remember. I much prefer my ending.
Yeah. I've gone to quite a few movies alone, and the last one was Killers of the Flower Moon, because like
Your
couldn't
wife
find a
wasn't gonna
can't
sit.
we can't find a babysitter for 4.5 hours.
I guess not.
Not
Unless
that
you
one we
hire
would
like
trust.
service. Yeah, that's the thing, right? The trust. And so uh I Am Legend was the first one, and then the second and last one was Clover Street, Cloverfield
Cloverfield,
Street
Cloverfield,
Lane, Cloverfield Lane,
10 Cloverfield Lane.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
It was like you didn't go see Cloverfield in theaters. That didn't make it. The timeline doesn't make sense.
I was like 6. No, but yeah, no, I would have been like maybe 13, but yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane I watched by myself, and that was cool.
So I was actually able to watch this movie twice, The Lobster, the one we're talking about, instead of I Am Legend for the last 3 minutes. And the one really cool aspect of this movie is so the first time you watch it, I had no idea what this movie is about. I kind of went in pretty blind. Um,
Oh, All right, so I think I went in with more
I think
more than you.
I went in knowing that it was like a love story with Rachel Weisz, which is not what it was, but like that he would end up with her. And so watching it throughout, like the dialogue doesn't really make sense until you like kind of get through it and you realize what the world is about. And then when you watch it again, you're like, oh, they're plainly saying everything, but it's just so out there and crazy that it doesn't make sense to you, right? Like, oh yeah, if you where's your brother? And you're like, oh, he's the dog. And you're like, oh, it's your brother's dog is with you. Okay, that's interesting. You mean like it took a while for me to realize that, but the dialogue is just straight up explaining everything, but it's just
Yeah.
so weird that I like was like not following it
So
like
you didn't know they turn into animals?
before I watched it. No.
Oh, okay. I knew that part. I was. It is a different movie than what I thought, but I knew more than you. Like, for example, what did you think of like the movie opening on this woman driving to like the countryside, gets out of her car with a gun and puts 3 bullets in a donkey? By the way, second Colin Farrell movie with a dead donkey.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, the first one, but second we've seen. Um, yeah, I had no idea. I was like, oh, that's provocative start. And
Very artsy.
well, and you know, as I was thinking about the movie, I was like, oh, so she was going back to kill like a husband, or
A brother
I
or
mean,
sister.
you could
Yeah.
have any sort of reasoning on what she did. Maybe it's a guy that spurned her advances and then decided to turn himself into a donkey. I don't know. But yeah, she capped him. But when we went back, when I watched it the second time, I was like, oh, is this someone that I'm going to recognize? And it wasn't. It was just like I guess just a random person. Um, but yeah, like that's kind of a very crazy way to open. And then I sent you a text like, oh, I guess tell Taylor we're even because you know under the Silver Lake, but you didn't even make her watch this, which probably a good call.
It is a good call, and it's not like I didn't make her. I actually wanted her to watch this because I didn't know how many fucking animals would die in this movie. But she she wanted to go lay down, and I was like, all right, well, I got to watch this, and it turned out to be for the best. Now, my question to you is, how did that woman, out of all the donkeys in that field, know that that was her donkey? Because I'll reference later on in the movie where the guy goes to visit his mom in the wolf den at the zoo, he did not know which one was her.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she saw him right after he was turned, and there's a distinguishing characteristic about the donkey that she was able to notice. So,
It's also interesting that the movie never shows us the turn. They just show us like the humans. They even show us like the outside of the room and explain to us what happened, even if that's even true, right? Because no one really knows, right? Um, but then and then we just see them as the animal.
yeah, it's almost you think like they're just murdering people, and then and then they just bring out a horse, and they're like, "This is her."
Yeah. Well, it does kind of seem like that because in the explanation we get on how they turn them into animals, where it's like they take out the brain, take out the eyes and all the organs, and then implant them into this animal, and then they throw away basically what's ever left over of your skin husk.
I will say that once I realized that that dog was his brother, it did sort of feel like the dog was his brother. Like he was you know like he would bark at him at certain times and things like that. That it made it seem like yeah, that's it, but it did also raise the questions to me of like, is it a human brain trapped in an animal with the memories of its humanity?
That's what I thought.
So then like you're a dog and then you're like, oh, I gotta go fuck another dog. I'm not into this. You know what I mean?
But what's interesting too is that, and I think this is what the first scene is trying to show us, is that you lose your humanity, right? Like you if you can't find a suitable partner, your punishment is that you lose your human rights. I mean, that woman just went out in the field and just killed a fucking donkey, which used to be a person, right? That's what we're speculating. And she's never going to get like capital punishment for that murder. But it's not a murder because that person is now an animal and no one gives a shit about animal. Is this a movie about becoming vegan?
Didn't work on me.
Hmm.
Um, I think we should start. There's a lot of like more global questions I have, but this movie's interesting in that I think they're brought about throughout the movie. So maybe we can just get started. Like, so the first scene after the donkey murder is Colin Farrell being broken up with by. They use the term partner a lot, and I was like, is there anything even? Is there any marriage? Is that? But then later on, they use the word marriage once.
Yeah,
Uh,
and also there's a reference of calling his ex-wife his wife.
that's what. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, because and she's breaking up with him because she found another guy, and this just had me thinking like, if you're having a rocky relationship, like you need to jump first,
Yeah. No, in this world, yeah.
especially if you're the man, honestly. But it also the world a little bit doesn't make sense, and that's one of the things of like maybe I think the movie's well received, but maybe slightly divisive with some people, lesser brains, but like how is cheating just allowed? You're married to someone and then you break up the marriage to go out with someone else and then that person's just fucked? Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, shouldn't there be some punishment for you?
well, yes, but how about the other guy?
Yeah, that guy too. Where did he come from?
Where 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 did he go? Where did he come from? Cotton
I
Eye
don't,
Joe.
yeah, no, but like, so his, you know, I would
No, but
assume
I'm thinking his wife too, right? Like if she left Farrell,
maybe she's Biscuit Lady. Maybe that was his wife.
maybe she's
He
Biscuit
left
Lady
Biscuit Lady.
because they're in the same bus.
The other question is, is it just this city that is like that,
I
or
think
is
you have
it
to assume the world.
the world is like that? Right? Yeah. Um,
Now you told me you were like, oh, because I was like, oh, no, the beginning of this puts more into context once you watch the whole movie because you get that she's breaking up with him, but you hear you hear a knock on the door, and you were like, oh, it's the other guy already, but it's not.
it
It's
still
the
could.
ser.
It
It's
still
the
could be.
serv. No, it's not. It's the service taking him away.
No, it still could be. It still could be. You don't know. You don't know who made that knock.
The very next shot is him being escorted by the two guys into the
We have
bus.
no idea how much time passed.
But think about it. If it is immediate and the knock on the door is the service, then either it's like a 1984 Big Brother thing where the government
No, I think she
knows
called them.
or she called them.
She's like, I got to get this certificate torn up. I'm getting married to this guy. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unanswerable questions about like the world outside of the hotel. So it's like we could spend forever on that.
And hotel is a really nice terminology for concentration camp.
I mean, I don't know. Like they're fed what seems to be pretty good food. There's a golf course. You
Yeah, but
can't
they're
you can't play volleyball unless you're a couple. I wonder if you can play doubles against another couple though. So
Ah.
he gets to the hotel and we get like sort of a little information. He was married for 11 years. He's like, "Are you going to be a heterosexual?" He's like, "Well, I did have one homosexual experience," and they're like, "I'm sorry, you can't choose bi." And the pause he takes of like, "All right, which one am I going to do? Which one am I going to do?"
It's
Um,
kind of crazy that he throws his homosexual experience out there like last second, and then seems like his whole plan was to go in bisexual, but did not know that that wasn't allowed anymore.
I think one one aspect of Colin Farrell's character you get throughout the movie, and a lot of people's, but Colin Farrell specifically, John, the guy with the limp, is that they more than finding love, they want to not be turned into an animal.
That's Q from James Bond, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
but so like I actually think Colin Farrell's like, "Can I choose bisexual?" is like, let me double my odds.
Oh no, 100%. And that's probably why they canceled that.
Ben Wishaw, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, it also maybe complicated things. But then you're wondering, like, all right, well, are you keeping we didn't see any gay people, did we? Maybe some
Oh, we did.
background people.
We did in the background where
You were looking for them. You were trying to map them out.
saw him fucking. No, they when Colin Farrell was sitting in the singles like dining area, he was looking into the couples area, and
All
you
right,
saw
all
a
right.
lot of gay couples there.
So
No, I didn't see any gay women. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, he might have should have gone if he was just trying to find someone, gay dude. Cause just like I
Did
don't know,
we end up meeting any single gay dudes?
because dudes. Well, Ben Whishaw in real life's gay,
No,
but
but but not in this. And then also we haven't met any lesbian women
I
except
feel
maybe
like
the French girl in the forest.
the heartless woman. She's probably a lesbian. She's, but so no. But what I was
I
gonna
think
say
she's
is like
asexual.
if you're no, she wanted to fuck. But if you're choosing gay dude, like I think it might just be easier to find something in common. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and
And you're and
for
you're just you're both opportunists of like, hey, can we just
can we
let's just get
let's just do
together. You
this?
know, we
Yeah.
don't have to fuck. You know what I like too is so once he's done with the reception, there's so many little tiny details in this movie that like really do create the world of this area. So for example, like he's like, oh, I'm a 44 and a half, which by the way, half centimeters is crazy to me. I just bought shoes off eBay that were like a half size too big because they're just the ones I wanted.
Yeah.
And Ashley was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, it's just like a little bit of room. And Ashley's like, yeah, you don't need that unless you're a child. And I was like, I don't need my toes like touching the front either. Like it's not that
I
big a deal.
I didn't even think about centimeters, right? Like half a centimeter is nothing. And
Nothing.
I'm
That's
like,
my point.
and they're like they don't do half sizes. I'm like, good.
Well, and then she's like 44 and a half. She's like, we don't do halves, 44 or 45. And it's like, well, clearly, if he's getting that technical, then it needs to be one or more. Like it
Of
can't be
course,
less. You know,
duh. The amount of importance that these couples must have something
in
almost
common.
physically in common, whether it's being nearsighted or glasses
It's
or
like it's a physical trait that
yeah.
they have. But what's interesting is so it's like clearly the government promotes that, but like the people the people like buy into it. They can't help but buy into it. So even when Colin Farrell escapes, he's like falling for Rachel Weisz, and Rachel Weisz is falling for him, and they just have this natural attraction. But they're like, all right, but we need something in common,
It's brainwashing
right?
101, and it's with the way they fake it too. And we see like someone successfully faking it and then someone unsuccessfully faking their commonality. I just love when he gets on the yacht and he's telling her, "Oh, he doesn't really have natural nosebleeds," and she's like, shut the fuck
When
up! I
she
don't
slaps
care."
him, and the daughter's like, tell him to leave. I'm tired. Mommy, stab him.
If we're talking about world building here, we need to talk about how these people get kids.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand. It seems like they are allowed to fuck and have kids, but then it also seems like maybe a couple can split up, but they split up not having anyone else, which is asinine, like crazy, and then they die, and so now we just have an orphan kid.
That is I think that is what happens. You have all these orphans because these parents are turned into animals, and then these other half.
What age do you think that a kid has to like immediately find someone? Like, is it 18? Do they have until 25? Or are they like, hey, 14-year-old, I'm gonna turn you into fucking duck if you don't
Okay,
find someone now?
so this is interesting. When he checks into the hotel and receptionist is asking him all these questions, I thought about this. Is that she goes, "Have you ever been alone?" And he goes, "No." And her next question is, "How long was your last relationship?" And he said 11 years and 1 month, right?
Right.
Assuming that Colin Farrell is what, 30 years old in this movie?
He's older than that.
Yeah, but what if he's playing a 30-year-old?
Yeah, it's
Right?
whatever. I mean,
Because
yeah,
then
but
it's like if you take 30 minus 11 and a half, you get basically 18.
yeah, I mean, in some form of math that you just did, I guess. Well, so he's born in 76, which would make him, yeah, about 40 when he filmed it. But yeah, I mean, he could have been playing anything. He put on 40 pounds for this movie. You can see it too in the gut.
He's so I there's not a movie that I've seen Colin Farrell in that I become less impressed with Colin Farrell.
Yeah, because he's playing like such a monotone, no emotion person, and no one really has emotion in this movie. I guess guy with the limp does. Which, by the way, looking on the cast listing, it's like bald man, loner leader's father, old waiter, doctor, donkey shooter, Bob the dog, biscuit woman, the maid. No one has names. The only names in the entire movie are John C. Reilly is Robert, David is Colin Farrell, and Ben Whishaw is John.
We don't
Those
get Rachel's name or
no,
the French loner leader.
no, she's the loner leader.
Oh.
Yeah, their names are never said. Let's get back to it. So one of the other cool things in that first part, they're like, all right, well, you can't keep any of your clothes. And then when you notice at the dance later that night, or like maybe the next day, all the women are wearing the exact same dress. All the guys are wearing the exact same thing.
It's even funnier. It's even funnier when you think that they're all in their like fancy dancing dresses and suits, and then they're called out for the hunt.
Yeah, but they're all. It's so the whole thing is so ass backwards, and it kind of is like a little bit like a commentary on how governments suck at like governing. But you're like trying to get people to be in relationships, and then you make everyone look the exact same. And by forcing people into relationships, no one loves anybody. There's not a single couple in this movie that loves each other. Like really.
Right. And they're just all so odd. Like I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is just Colin Farrell's character. And then you meet everyone else and you're like, no. And then you meet like everyone in the hotel and you're like, maybe it's just everyone in this hotel is just special needs or something, right? I don't know. And then you meet everyone in the forest. Well, everyone in the forest are runaways from people in the hotel. So in that
Which you
case,
don't know in the beginning.
right, you don't know in the beginning. And I love how all the animals that they're turned into are just randomly in this forest. Like we see a peacock, a camel, tons of fucking rabbits.
Yeah, they don't do
Um,
anything with them. They just. Oh, I didn't even consider the fact that people are turning into rabbits and then just getting thrown in the forest and eaten by the loners.
it's specifically Rachel Weisz's character.
Yeah,
Um,
she's
but
big into
then
rabbits.
what's crazy too is that when they go to the city and they meet people like outside of this weird camp, you meet like the officers who are questioning people who are alone for an insurmountable amount of time, and then they're weird too. But yeah, I mean, just the way everyone talks to each other is very like straightforward, small sentences. It's just very odd.
So the other thing too is you have 45 days, or you get turned into an animal. And if you do find someone to be a couple with, you move into a double, then you move on to the yacht. Also, when they're just like, all right, no smoking, so you can you can run longer and faster during the hunt. I was like, the hunt? What the fuck? And then like the next scene, you see him, Colin Farrell, looking outside, and there's they're the loners that are outside on the ground, who are just immediately get turned into animals. Um, so the next scene, this is I guess brings up one of the questions. Olivia Colman comes up and she's like, hey, well, you're going to be turned into an animal if you don't fall in love. What animal? And he says, a lobster. And she's like, I commend you on your choice. Most people
Yeah.
say dogs. It's why there's so many dogs. And Colin Farrell just looks over at his brother. And all the reasons for being a lobster, like you can live to 100, you can this and that. You can, and then later on, John's like, someone's going to capture you, boil you, and eat your fucking insides in your brain. Like, you're so stupid.
Another great thing about this world is she says, I commend you for being an animal that's, not a dog. That's why we have so many dogs in this world. And that's why so many animals are going extinct. And I thought that was really interesting.
It is. What would you choose? I told you I was going to ask. I'll give you time to think. So
Okay.
you know why Ashley and I are perfect? Because
You
I
said
was
the same animal?
I was explaining to her the movie, and she's like, I would just be a grizzly bear so I could fucking kill everyone right after they turned me. I just go in and start murdering people. And I was like, I had the same thought. And I was like, we could do that together. We could be loners, and then we could murder people and have bear sex. She's like, well, why wouldn't we just stay humans if we're going to be together? And I was like, I don't know, the bear sex. You know what I mean? Like,
Jesus Christ. This is
and
why.
then she started explaining to me that I guess animals don't feel pleasure when they do that, and I was like, I don't know how you know that. You're not a fucking scientist. So anyway,
How
but
did you
grizzly
know that?
bear, I think grizzly bear is a pretty good one.
That is a good
You
one.
could take out a lot of people on the way out.
Rhinoceros.
And in this dystopian world, rhinoceros not, except they're going to cut your horn off, depending
See,
on where you get
that's the
sent.
thing in this society. I wonder what's like left over from like what we know to be, or are we put in like if we choose like an African mammal that needs to live in like that sort of climate, are they still going to throw us in this like New England forest?
I'm thinking like bald eagle, and then
Fly the
you
fuck away
fly
from here.
you fly to America. I don't know if this takes place in America. It probably doesn't. I think it was filmed in Edinburgh. Yeah, fly to America, and then just people have to leave you alone for the most part.
Yeah.
Could they turn you into an extinct species?
Well, what doesn't make sense is that the way it's described, how it's done, is they take out your eyes and they take out your brain and they take out your organs, put you inside this animal. So you have to assume they have to already have a dead version of this animal to like reanimate. But also, they're not putting Colin Farrell's eyes inside a lobster. It's completely different eyes.
So, have you seen the movie What Happened to Monday?
No.
It's a pretty okay science fiction movie on Netflix. And spoiler alert, and I'm going to ruin it for you. So, at the end of the movie,
Oh no, shit! You did ruin this for me. You explained to me already
well, I'm
about the
ruining it for the
sisters.
audience unless you want to fast forward 15 seconds. At the end of the movie, they put people in this machine that they think is going to like send them somewhere. It just fucking burns them to death, obliterates them. And that's what you find out, that's what's been happening to people. That's what this kind of feels like. That they just are murdering people, and they're like, there's too many people, and animals are just still like fucking naturally, and like
Yeah,
there's no need for the humans.
that's kind of
Um,
funny. That's pretty funny. So yeah, so we get kind of this. We learn more about who else is at this hotel. We through narration. Um, well, we get the mean woman is heartless. The biscuit woman loves biscuits. The other
nosebleeds.
nosebleeds.
Her best friend, beautiful hair.
Right, right.
Well, and the way he says, what's funny is the foreshadowing of a woman he would learn is heartless. This is also why he's handcuffed to his pants. Like
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
everything that's done here is like, I want to skip ahead to the scene where they tell John C. Reilly they know he's frequently masturbating, so they burn his hand. Which, by the way, they burned his right. Wouldn't even affect me, but but no. But my point is, like, now you just got this dude with the burned hand who's everyone in the hotel's like, oh, there's the chronic masturbator.
Yeah, but isn't that crazy? But also, they can have these like maids come and like grind on your penis, and like that's okay as long
just
as
to
you don't.
just to give you blue balls. And I love the way that Colin Farrell's so monotone. That was awful. That's so awful. Can you please not? Can you just stay on a little bit longer? What's funny to me is that in the scene specifically where they do the toaster, it's this fucking old guy, Olivia Colman, the maid, and Olivia Colman's husband. Dude, I'll beat the shit out of all four of them. Like, what is, like, you know what I mean? Like, just start. You're not burning my hand in a toaster.
Yeah, but in this world, everyone is so
Compliant.
compliant. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just this super compliant world. It's like 1984. It's like, if someone on a higher authority is going to be like, "Hey, random citizen, go beat this other random citizen with a baseball bat," they'd just be like, "Yep, okay."
So we get this. This is like further of the, the defining characteristic. So the guy with the limp says, hey, the limp is my defining characteristic. And then he explains that his wife died 6 days ago. So he got like a couple days, I guess maybe to make funeral arrangements. And they're like, all right, you're off to this hotel. You got 45 days until you turn into an animal. And it's like that gave me the thought of like, are people just hiding bodies?
Ah.
Like, oh, yeah, just like I'm fucking burying her in the backyard. And like, yeah, my wife's at home. Like I'm getting fucking Uber deliveries and like I'm never leaving. I'm just going to stay in my house until I die.
Yeah, but I wonder if you're ever found out to like a period of like, oh, so many days have passed, you don't even get the hotel chance anymore. You just get immediately turned into an animal.
What is the punishment for murder? Do you get put in jail? Like what are people in jail allowed to be loners?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure there's a capital punishment for murdering humans, but then it's like, okay, you want to murder your wife, turn into an animal, and then murder her, and you're fine. You're scot free.
I mean, a lot of like Western European countries, which is I'm guessing where this takes place, don't have the death penalty. So, but
So,
there's also a dystopian future.
but
So
is their death penalty getting turned into an animal?
maybe, well, yeah, because then you get eaten. So, and then they were like, oh yeah, they said a lot of the leftover parts from the humans get thrown in the bins near the kitchen. I was like, you guys fucking eating humans?
That's what I thought that too.
Yeah. So maybe the food's not that great. So
So
then the next scene's the dancing scene, and this is where all the women are wearing the same thing. And Colin Farrell goes and asks the nosebleed woman to dance. And at a certain point, John is talking to John C. Riley. So Ben Whishaw is talking to John C. Riley. He's like, "Have you ever danced? Like, do you ask people to dance? Like, like asking him questions." He's like so nervous, but so wanting to not be turned into an animal. Um, and then the alarm goes off, and I think like one of my favorite scenes is the slow mo hunt with the music and John
yeah,
C. Riley like falling down the hill and like then helping Biscuit Lady up. The heartless woman has a dart gun and she's still like, no, I'm just gonna beat this woman into unconsciousness. I'm not even gonna use my darts. Like there's
yeah.
not extra points for that, but she's just like, that's how I'm doing it. Um, and then Colin Farrell and John C. Riley like get none, and they're just like, oh, you have the same amount of days left.
I do like how we start at 45 days, and before we even know it, we're down to like 6 days.
Well, yeah, and they tell you each morning too, which is cool. So it does give you a timeline of the movie. Oh, and that the Heartless Woman has like 158 days left.
Yes, yes,
So she like doesn't have to find a partner because she's like, I'm just so good at this.
exactly.
I'm just gonna get to chill here. Um, so the next day
I like
it
to think
starts.
that she was homeless, and this gives her a bed and like food and everything. She just has
she
to
probably
fucking hunt people.
she probably killed her husband.
Yeah,
So it's like goes to the next day, but it says 32 days left, and this is like a funny like montage of scenes where they like have the maid and the guards and stuff acting out like the differences between being alone and being to get like with somebody and like, oh, this is eating alone, and the guy starts choking, or like, oh, this is a woman walking alone, and she like it's like
just
gets
gets raped,
assaulted.
just
Yeah,
like
she's like,
real
oh
quick.
no. Which by the way, where are all these like? I mean, I guess the married people are doing the raping. Otherwise, like, are the loners? Who knows?
I don't
Um,
know. That's a good question.
the maid giving him blue ball scene is so funny. The toaster scene is also just like back to back to back. So funny.
It's actually insane how they do this because I think you mentioned you have to give up smoking to better your odds because you'll be more kissable and you'll smell better, right?
Yeah, better breath.
But they're gonna just publicly humiliate this guy with a burned hand. I mean, that cuts his chances horribly.
I agree. Um, I love the next scenes in the bus, and the biscuit woman is clearly into Colin Farrell. It also seems like the biscuit woman is trying to find someone. It seems like John C. Riley is trying to find someone. What
I
are you
thought
two
that
doing?
I thought exactly the same thing.
I mean, I'm not saying beggars can't be choosers because that'd be a rude thing to say, but it's like it seems like you two are both kind of pathetic enough to work out. You know what I mean? Like maybe you guys should give it a shot. And it seems like they both think a little bit more of themselves than they should in this scenario where being turned into an animal is on the line. And she's just like comes out and is like, I'm gonna fucking kill myself if you don't fuck me. And she's like, I give great fellatio, and if you're into anal, like that's fine with me too. Whatever. He's like, I'll just come to your hotel room and fuck you. And his just keeps thinking in his head the narration of Rachel Weisz. He's like, I just keep thinking of how great that excuse was that my dog can't leave the room. Can't argue with that.
um, Speaking of that, when so fucking hilarious when the girl with the great hair, her best friend marries Ben Winshaw, right? And they go
Yeah.
off. and she's down to her last day. Which I guess it's just because she's just a bitch, because she is quite beautiful. But
With perfect breasts,
how,
apparently.
how such a weird thing to say to your friend. Although women have different kind of friendships than men have, but whatever.
John C. Riley saying his last words to Colin Farrell is like, by the way, beautiful cock.
Beautiful cock. You
I've
kind of
always,
sound like you kind of
I've
sound
always,
like
I've always admired your cock, so I'm really gonna miss it.
the way you just said beautiful cock. You kind of sounded like uh not Willem Dafoe, but the guy with the very discernible, very recognizable accent.
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. Yeah.
I don't think I did it
Beautiful
well.
cock.
That was not a good Christopher Walken either.
No, it wasn't. But
So,
you got close. No, but what I wanted to say is that when Colin Farrell was hitting on the girl with great hair, she was just not picking up anything he was laying down, and she's a day away from
well,
getting turned into an animal.
so what I kind of figured is that her and her friend were supposed to both just get turned into horses or whatever and hang out. So when her friend's like, I'm sorry that this happened to you, when I make other friends, and then she slaps her and she's like, I want to watch Stand By Me with River Phoenix and Kiefer Sutherland alone. Like,
I
she seems like she doesn't want to be in a relationship.
I guess it kind of ended up like, I mean, well, yeah, she ended up with that being true, but I don't know why at that point you're a day away, you're upset about it. Just get with the guy who's hitting on you, right? Like, what's
I
the?
think I don't think she minds being turned into a horse. That's the thing. I don't think she
And then
minds.
I'm surprised her movie is Stand By Me. Quite honestly, I'm thinking like War Horse or like Spirit. Spirit's a good movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
So Black Beauty.
Seabiscuit.
So the limp goes
Although
to
Seabiscuit's a horrible.
to the nosebleed and just talks to her about swimming. And he's so like, oh, my favorite stroke is the breaststroke. My friends just, I was like, I don't think you have
You
friends.
talking about Ben Winshaw and the nosebleeder?
I said the limp.
Oh God, just be.
You kept doing your fucking Seabiscuit bit
No, I'm just
that you
saying
weren't
Seabiscuit's a
listening.
good movie, but a bad one that are people who are fans of horses. Is what I was saying.
You really had to finish that. You're like, I have to say this funny thing
I don't
about
want people. I
Seabiscuit.
don't want people to know that I thought Seabiscuit was a bad movie.
No, I don't know that anyone thought it or cared. Anyway, back to the lobster. So he goes up to her, spitting his best game about the best swimming strokes for men and women. And then I love the way this is shot. And I think Yorgos does this quite a bit, where he doesn't necessarily do like you know what I mean? The thing to watch in this scene when she's swimming all the way down and she's closest to the camera, but he's way in the back, Ben Whishaw, and he fucking slams his head against the
I
thing
didn't.
to cause the
So
nosebleed.
it shows.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I saw it the second time because I was like, I'm sure it's on here. Yeah, I just think that's a really cool like detail that you catch if you catch it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, because for me, I didn't catch it, right? So all of a sudden, she's swimming back, and his nose is bleeding, and then later it's explained that he hits his head against the
Yeah,
you
Colin
know.
Farrell calls him out. I wonder if Colin Farrell at that point is like, "Oh, I was going after her. You sort of stole her from me."
That's what I thought too, because he called her out on the dance floor, right?
Yeah, so they are gonna get married, and then they're like, Olivia Colman's like, and you'll be monitored, and if there's any fights, you'll be given a child, which is honestly just like hilarious because it's like, oh yeah, children make things less complicated. They like, it's just funny. So then it cuts to 7 days left. He tries to hit on the nice hair woman, and then we already talked about her last day, and then she gets turned into a pony.
I love
So,
that too. She just goes on and on about her hair, and then the very next shot is her as a pony, but we see her from like high up in the hotel, and we just see the blonde mane of the horse, and we just immediately know that's her.
still got that nice hair. So Colin Farrell's out golfing while he gets a call from the biscuit woman, and he's just like, I'm going after that heartless woman. And when he comes back, you hear the biscuit woman like wailing. And at first I was like, is someone else screaming because she fell? But then it's explained like, oh, she jumped out of the first floor, or even though she said she wasn't going to.
Yeah.
Which this has to be Europe because they say like floor 1, which floor 0 would be the ground floor, and floor 1 is where she jumped from.
Mm.
And Colin just comes up. I wish she would stop wailing. I need to take a nap, and her wailing is really going to gonna keep me up. And the heartless lady's like, yeah, there's blood and biscuits everywhere. And then he's like, I hope she dies quickly. Actually, I hope she suffers and then she dies. And then when
Um,
she is in the hot tub and she pretends to die
yeah,
in front of him is so fucking funny.
it's hilarious. The fact that he knew he was like testing him too is quite impressive.
Well, if you watch him like very closely in that scene, Colin Farrell like does a very subtle, like he like kind of moves forward for a second, then holds himself back, like oh, and he's like, no, no, I can't show any emotion. You know what I mean? It's very funny, and and so then she's like, we are compatible. Then that night, she like twerks on his lap,
Yeah.
like the same way the maid does. Um, And then he's like, "Which side of the bed?" She's like, "I right." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I left. That works out perfectly. Are you gonna read?" "Yeah, I can sleep with the light. I'm such a deep sleeper." It's like everything he says is to like just continue to like woo her.
But
Like
it's also all true.
some of it. I don't know which side of the bed he sleeps on.
Well, fine, okay, but he's a deep sleeper. He didn't hear his brother dog getting fucking bashed in the next room.
That's true. He kicks the little girl from the Limp family.
That is hilarious if you think about it, because she's like, hey, if there's an argument that you two can't settle, you'll be given a child. And almost immediately they're given not like a baby, they're given like a 10-year-old.
Yeah. So what's funny to me after this is Colin Farrell and the woman are having sex, like doggy style, and she hears him moan, and she's like, "What was that?" She's like, "I want to turn around and look at you." And she's like, "I want to turn the light on," and she's like steadying him to see if he's like enjoying sex. That's her sign that they're not compatible because he's enjoying it, like he's making
Oh,
noises.
I didn't think about that.
So then the next day she killed, like, which is kind of the roughest scene. It's one of those things where it's like people like more hurt by seeing an animal get killed than a person, but it is there's not really any humans that are getting killed like right in front of us.
Except for the biscuit lady.
Yeah, which no, even she doesn't die because I mean I don't know what they did with her. We don't see her again, but like she just kind of fucked herself up quite a bit.
So if she's turned into an animal now,
Is she gonna be an injured animal?
yeah, exactly. That's my
I
question.
don't no idea. And maybe she's limited on what animals she can be. She might have to be like an aquatic one. That's what you want to be, like a fucking. You know what I'm gonna do? Fuck you guys, blue whale,
What if you
megalodon,
what if what if
giant
you
octopus.
giant squid? What if you pick an animal and they're like, no, not available?
A grizzly bear, and then I'm gonna fucking kill all of you. Yeah, yeah. They're just like, we don't think you should be a grizzly bear. It's like it's what I chose. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna break the law? I don't know.
That's another thing. Is this like the only hotel in this major city, or are there different
I think it's like
different?
It's like Hogwarts. There's a bunch of different ones. We only really know about this one, and then in the fourth movie, we're like, oh, there's other schools.
in the Lobster 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure. The second one's coming any day. So she kills the dog very fucking hard, and she like walks in the bathroom. I knew you were crying. I knew we're not compatible. And this scene is awesome, where she's like walking him up to the manager, and she's like, "You're gonna get turned into a thing no one wants to get turned into." It's like I don't know what a cockroach. Like what could it be?
I thought cockroach, but guess what it was?
How do you know?
Because they show there's like a voiceover about being turned into an animal that no one wants to be turned into, and it shows a pig. And then later on in the movie, you know that someone else is turned into a pig, so it's a pig.
I don't know about that. She's using the truffle pig. The loner is.
I thought
I
it
don't
was a
know.
pig.
Maybe I don't know.
Could you
So
could you be turned into a bug? Is that an option? I don't think your brain and organs can fit in a bug.
bro, this movie doesn't make sense, man.
I just wanted to make sense.
We got to assume the technology is pretty great.
Pretty advanced.
So he
We also have to
escapes.
assume. I'm sorry for this, but we also have to assume
We don't have to assume. Fuck, I was
that
talking. Go
that we
ahead.
have to assume that the technology is so simple to use because he just walks in and just does it without any like authority.
I don't know that he did it. I think he just put her in there with the assumption that they were just going to be like, oh, there's a body in here. I guess we're going to do this.
Oh, whatever.
Like he just wrote on the chart, like, turn her into a fucking goldfish.
Well, where did the rest?
Goldfish is bad because those die so quickly.
That's true too. Do you get the longevity of each animal too? Is that your curse?
Well, that's why he wanted the lobster. They live 100 years. You should
Oh,
go
that's
tortoise.
right.
Tortoise is a good one.
Tortoise is a good one.
Box turtle. Box turtle. Those live like 150
I
years.
like that one.
So, but this is my like another awesome scene where she's chasing him. You know, a lot of this movie feels like a much darker like Wes Anderson movie.
I can see that. Yeah.
But she's chasing him, and then the maid helps, and the way they like scuttle into the room to get the dart gun and like shoot her, scuttle into the room, and then he comes out, and then she's like, "You have to shoot me too, otherwise they'll know I'm in on it." And he shoots her,
That
and then he runs away.
that whole sequence reminded me out of that movie Ready or Not.
How so?
Just like her being like in cahoots with him, the maid being in cahoots with her, him coming out with the trank gun and then shooting her. I don't know, the way it was shot and everything just reminded me of like the manhunt in Ready or Not.
So we're now basically at the half point of the movie, and I have to say that I read some like different reviews, and I kind of agree that like the first half is better to me. The hotel stuff I enjoy way more.
Mm-hmm.
So now we make it to the loners, and the whole point of this movie is right, like, so the official government is like, all right, you have to be into couples, and then you get to the loners, you're like, all right, there's going to be some freedom, but the loners, which I don't know if it's just this one woman who's controlling everything or what, but the loners are like, you can't be in a relationship, like you're forbidden or we'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so, the point being like, oh, either way, this like totalitarian control is not good. Like no matter,
Yeah.
even if you're doing it for what you think is the right thing, it's not the right thing if you do it this way. So, you can't
I thought
flirt.
you could have sex, but you can't, right? You can just masturbate.
Yeah, you can jerk off. Everything's got to be done alone.
Yeah.
Can't even dance together. That's why there's only electronic music.
I thought that was probably the best line in the whole movie.
And then there's the red kiss, which is explained, but not as bad as the red intercourse, which I thought was going to come up later, but it's not. It's a red herring, if you will. So,
Not anymore.
Rachel Weisz comes up and she starts narrating her part now. And she's like, the first day, which I guess she's narrating her journal the whole time. But she's like, the first day I saw him, I dreamed we lived in a big house and I was wearing this, this dress and this blouse. And we were in the kitchen and he fucked me in the arse. I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then we were attacked. We were stabbed in the stomachs and I woke up. Cut to a scene where a guy gets caught in a bear trap and there's such loners they can't even help him get out. He has to get out on his own. Otherwise he's going to, be killed. And it's like, just crazy shit. And after this, we get to see the hunt from the loners' point of view, which I thought was really cool.
Well, before that, we get them hiding and then scurrying and then hiding, and that first practicing, and then that first hiding scene, I honestly did not think that there were people in that scene. It was just like a nice shot of the nature, and then all of a sudden they're like scurry, and all of them came out.
They're good hiders. I mean, they're practiced up.
Yeah.
So
the hunt from their perspective, yeah.
John C. Reilly shows up, and I love the way that Colin Farrell's like, "Oh, you're my best friend. I've missed you." He's like, "Do you want to come back to the hotel?" He's like, "No, I don't like it. I love being a loner. The only thing I really miss is you, my best friend." He's like, "I'm not your best friend. You're closer with John." He's like, "No, no, no." And he's like, "Are you gonna shoot me?" He's like, "Yeah."
He's like, he goes, "John who?" Oh, the guy with
that
the
guy.
limp.
I forgot his name. And he's like, then he's like, "Are you gonna shoot me?" And John C. Reilly's like, "Yeah, I have to. I need extra days." He's like, "You fucking idiot! You're so ugly. An extra day is not gonna help you." He like completely turns when he's like, "You're, not. This isn't working."
Also, he could have like been like, "Hey, you know how?" And I thought this was the way it was gonna go. He's like, "Hey, you know how you like to masturbate?
Well, you just do that out here.
You can just do that out here. Why don't you just come out here?"
He says you can masturbate whenever you want. He does say
I thought it was going to entice him into like, reconsidering his whole ordeal. But then Rachel Weisz just comes up behind him and stabs him in the calf.
And then fucking Colin Farrell just steals all of his clothes, like takes everything from him. And she's like, "If you want to repay me, it's with a rabbit." And then we see the maid come out and she meets with the loner leader. And they're gonna do a raid, and she's like, "Did you bring the shampoo? Please make note of the shampoo for next time, so you don't forget." And then there's this part that I didn't really understand the first time, but she's like, "Oh, I can't live with this fat dentist anymore. He makes me brush my teeth." And I realized, like, because I was wondering, like, are they married? But yeah, she's married too. She just like lives in this area with her fat dentist husband. Then they walk to the city. You already talked about this a little bit. Shopping. They're stopped by the police for the certificate. And then Colin Farrell, when he's meeting the loner's parents, the leader, this whole thing about, I like my job, but I wish it didn't keep me away from my family and my 4 kids. But even if I didn't have my 4 kids, I would love my wife. And we travel. The leader afterwards like, that stuff was brilliant. That was great. And he's like, oh, all right, I did it.
But it was still
Um,
like it was really flirting with Rachel Weisz
Absolutely.
through that. Yeah.
And then afterwards, she's talking to her and she's like, I didn't know you were short sighted too. Do you have astigmatism too? Like all this. And it's still, like we said earlier, like even though they clearly love each other, they're like, or attracted to each other greatly, they need that common trait in order for them to, because like jumping ahead, but later on after she's blind, he's like, can we kiss? And she's like, we can't do that anymore. I was like, well, can you not do that because the leader's watching? Or can you not do that anymore because you don't share the trait? Like, what's up?
Oh, I thought it was because the leader was watching.
But the fact that at the end, he's like, I have to stab myself in the eyes so we can fuck again. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like.
The most tense scene in this whole movie is when she lures her out. So she's already blinded her, right? She's already went to that eye doctor. He blinded her. And I guess they went under like Rachel Weisz went under the whole thing thinking she was going to get her astigmatism fixed.
You know what this is almost like, it's like one of those things where you like someone know. Oh, it's perfect from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo when
Oh yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård is like, you knew you shouldn't come in this house. You knew I was a danger, and out of politeness, you came in, and now I'm going to kill you. And that's what this is. Like, she knows she shouldn't go to this eye doctor, but she just can't upset the leader. You know what I mean? She's just so worried about like
Yeah.
whatever, instead of just being like, no, I don't want to do this today. Like, we're not doing it today.
Well, so when she becomes blind, the most tense part of this movie for me, I had to like pause it and be like, fuck, what's going to happen here? She gets that maid to come out with them and become one of their loners people, right?
Yeah, the maid wanted to, yeah.
Just to be stabbed by Rachel Weisz under the guidance of the lone leader, and then to make it feel like Rachel killed the lone leader. And when she just fucking stands back up, I don't know. I was like, oh, she has a one up on Rachel. And I thought she was going to kill her.
The most tense scene for me was when they just like start almost making out and dry humping in front of her family, and I was just like, what are you guys fucking doing? Like, why are you trying to get caught right now?
Yeah.
Just fuck later. Like, you don't need to do this right now.
Well, it did get them caught. It did get her like super suspicious.
Well, it did, but then the maid's just like, oh, I just found this journal on the beach.
Oh yeah, fuck.
So
Yeah,
it
that's
didn't.
right.
It didn't. I like I don't know when this comes up, but when they're like, oh, we come up with hand signals. She's like, if we look to the right, it means I love you more than anything. If we look to the left, it's danger is near. If we put a fist behind her back, it's you want to fuck right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Yorgos is like, just he has to have like tons of sex in his movies. Like, it's just like a must. All the ones I've seen so far, including like the bit I've seen of Poor Things.
Oh, Poor Things is just the most probably.
You should watch Dogtooth. So the next scene is the raid, and I love that. So Colin Farrell's like, "Can I go to the yacht?" He goes to the yacht, and he's just like, "Hey, he lied about the nosebleeds. That's not real. We already talked about it." And at that point, I kind of think, "Oh, Colin Farrell's fucked this up. He went there to save them. He didn't even kill them. He left his gun. Like, he screwed this mission up." And then you see what the leader does.
Right.
They're just trying to fuck their relationships up. They're not trying to kill them. They just want them to realize they don't love each other. So they get the Olivia Colman's husband to shoot her, but it doesn't have a gun. So now they're like, oh, well, your relationship's fucked. Except those two are just opportunists. Like, it didn't seem like they loved each other anyway. So they're just like, all right, well, I guess we're just staying together.
Right. They're just gonna but it's not even that, right? It's just making them live in their own misery.
I guess, yeah, I guess. But you're trying to get people to see that this sucks. But I mean, the system. I mean, I don't know how much control the central government has over Olivia Colman's operation, but so I also love too. They're like, out of a scale of 1 to 15, how much do you love your wife? And he's like, 14. Like 14. That's a very impressive score. Which one of you can live without the other? He's like, oh, I can totally live without her. She can't live without me, but I could totally live without her. I would just stay inside and watch TV. Like I'd be fine. And then we get back. They're doing the silent disco, and I got a little hint of like the leader kind of likes Colin Farrell. Like
Really?
a little bit of like, I think it's played pretty down the middle, but I could see like someone thinking, and I was like, I could go either way, that she's a little bit jealous of the Colin Farrell Rachel Weisz thing at the end because she's like, "Where'd you go? Where were you?" And he's like, "Oh, I was masturbating." She's like, "Oh, okay." She hugs him in the beginning, and then they find the article. So I mean, we can skip through a bunch of things. First of all, like the scene where he's like, "Don't accept rabbits from other people. I'll get you rabbits." Was that guy
Yeah.
nearsighted? Goes and like accosts the guy.
Right.
Then the sync exercise where they dance and kiss and they develop the code. And then we talked about the scene at the parents where they are, they're making out and they decide to leave together. And then they find the journal. After she blinds her, you know, she says to the leader, which is another kind of fucked up thing. Rachel Weisz is like, "Well, why didn't you just blind him?" And when they read the journal, you would think like this journal is like, you guys have fucked, you've kissed, like you should be getting the red intercourse. That should be the punishment. But instead, the leader fucks with her eyes and makes her blind so that they won't leave together. And it's like, and then she tells Colin Farrell, she like sits with him while he digs his grave. And then she's like, "I'll visit your grave often." Like, why would she visit his grave often?
Well, also, why does he have to go into his grave and put dirt on his face?
So the dogs don't bite it? I don't know. It just seems like practice. But I don't know. I got a little bit of like some jealousy there. But I don't know. I think you could read it either way.
Oh, so the dogs don't bite it. That's why it's so significant when she's put in her grave, there's already dogs there.
With nothing over her face, and they're about to
Yeah.
fucking rip her apart. So yeah, we talked about the journal, and then the him digging his own grave. What kind of doctor is just like, yeah, I'll blind people for money? Where do they get
It's a
money?
dystopian fucking, Oh yeah, where do they get money from her parents? Maybe that's what's like up with the frequent visits.
Yeah, she's like, I need money again. But
I gotta
Rachel
go live
Weisz,
out in the woods with my weird friends.
Rachel,
Thank you.
it's funny too. You think like, oh, maybe Rachel Weisz and Colin Farrell are like the one true love in this entire movie, and then when she gets blinded, she's like, "Why did you blind me and not him?" And you can see a little bit of like the selfishness in her, like of you know,
But this is a society that kind of breeds selfish
that's
people.
what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. The point of the movie that even the couple you think is above that is not above that. There is no true love, right? There's not even a good person in this movie.
No.
Maybe the daughter, the daughter of the limp people. But I don't know.
No, not even her, because she
She
was like,
seems a little.
"Mom, stab him."
Well, he was fucking things up for them. You know what I mean?
Eh,
Desperate times.
I guess.
So she comes back blind, and she like lies to him for a second. Then she's like, "I have to tell you," and he's like, "Well, then why'd you mention my haircut?" It's like, and he gets upset. And there's like a montage of him like losing interest. He's like, "What's your blood type? Do you like berries?" She's like, "I can teach you German," which, by the way, he says German is one of the toughest languages. And I looked it up, and according to the Rosetta Stone, it's not one of the toughest languages.
I'm glad that's what you looked up because of this movie. Now, I do want to mention that I love the showing of his like him becoming more and more uninterested in her.
Right.
Is they're playing that guessing game where she has to hold the object and then
Touch feel guess game or something like
yeah, touch
that.
feel guess game. And at first she's getting a couple right and he tells her it's right, and then she gets a couple wrong and he tells her it's wrong, right? But then at some point she's just guessing a bunch of fucking wrong things and he's just so like, yeah, yep,
How
all
can
right, good job, done for today.
how can you not smell a tennis ball and know it's not a kiwi?
Right, that's what I was wondering, unless this woman has never encountered
Fucking
a
moron.
tennis ball.
And
No,
then
wait, she can encounter a tennis ball, right? Because they can't play tennis until they're a couple.
I'm sure she's lived outside of the hotel.
Hmm.
Um, he asked for a kiss, and she's like, "We can't do that anymore. We already talked about that." And then the next scene, she's like, it's been a few days. I'm starving. You haven't brought me a rabbit in days. I love the way he's like, I have a proposal. And then he tells her the proposal by mouthing,
The hand
like,
signals.
yeah, like saying the hand signals in like just in words. And I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool touch. And then he ties the leader up, knocks her out, and you see the dogs walking around that are about to kill her. Walk to the city, goes to the diner, and then he's going to stab his eyes out.
I do want to mention that when I first saw him going into the woods becoming a loner and he meets the loner leader played by Leah Seydoux,
Yep.
I was like, wow, he meets like one of the most like beautiful women, like comparatively to everyone at the hotel, like beautiful woman. And then runs into Rachel Weisz, who's, as we've discussed on this podcast before, we both think is incredibly attractive. And I'm just like, this is where all the really good looking women go.
I mean, I don't know. I think Nosebleed Woman's hot. I think the maid, very attractive.
Yeah, where did she end up?
Olivia Colman,
Oh,
she can get it.
I know
Um,
your thing for Olivia Colman, man.
I mean, if you watch Broadchurch, that woman can solve some crimes.
That's true.
So,
Yeah, that's her sometimes.
do you think he stabs his eyes out, or do you think he's just like tries to pretend to be blind?
So it's so interesting, right? Because so much time passes and he's like, hey, me blinding myself. He orders a steak knife from the restaurant, goes into the bathroom. He's like, hey, me blinding myself, that's only going to take a second. I'll be right back, right? And we see him building up the courage to do it, pussying out, building it up again. We
I don't
cut
think you
back.
can. I don't think you can say pussying out from not sticking a steak knife into his eyes.
And I also feel like there's other ways to blind yourself, and that's just not it, Chief, right?
Go to the doctor. It's like
Well, like,
have a professional do this.
first of all, you have to blind your both eyes at the same time. It's like waxing your nose, right? If you do one nostril, you're not going to do the other one.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. It's not happening.
So we cut back to her and we see her just alone for a long period of time. The waiter comes over, gives her water. She's just there alone. And the movie cuts off. And I think he fucking ran.
It would have been funny if you just saw him.
I was looking for him. I was looking for him out the window, just booking it down the highway.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. I couldn't do it. Like physically, I definitely couldn't do it, and then like mentally, I just couldn't force myself to stab myself in the eye, like not on purpose.
But it's so strange how physical attributes are so important to these people.
It is, but once again, we've said it's sort of like brainwashed, ingrained in them. I do think one maybe drawback of this movie is it does feel like it just sort of ends. You know what I mean? Like the way it ends is just sort of feels like, all right, well, we're just ending it.
It's like the producers. It's like, oh, everyone's gonna walk out before the ending of this movie. We don't even have to bother with an ending.
I don't know. It just felt like, I mean, I like it that it's open ended, but it also felt like you're just like, all right, we don't know how to end it. We're gonna just end it open ended. You know what I mean? Like,
That's not. I so weird because I don't feel like that at all. I feel like there is intention behind that, and I feel like it is up to the viewer's interpretation and how I take it. You could also think that at the end, maybe he really did turn into a lobster.
the waiter's gonna bring him out. I don't know.
That'd
For
be
her to eat.
fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and I mean, this movie is more about making the point than I guess the story. Like the story is funny. It's very like witty.
See, David, everything is a metaphor within each other.
Is this cancer again? So, the movie was filmed in Ireland, and then I thought it was in Edinburgh, but maybe I got that wrong. So, originally, the loner leader was going to be played by one of our favorites, Elizabeth Olsen.
Really?
Oh, it was Dublin where it was filmed. I got Scotland and Ireland mixed up. Sorry, guys.
Can't do that.
Yeah, they're gonna be mad. And then Jason Clarke was cast in the lead role, but had to drop out. Elizabeth
Movie.
Olsen couldn't do it because of fucking MCU. That's a different movie. Jason Clarke and Elizabeth Olsen.
That is a different movie. Although I don't feel like Colin Farrell and Elizabeth Olsen would make it that different.
And then, Colin Farrell does this, and Yorgos loves to run it back with people because he does Killing of the Sacred Deer with Colin like right after this.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole sliding doors of like how that turns out.
Do you think if it was Elizabeth Olsen, we would have seen Elizabeth Olsen in Poor Things?
Hmm.
Hmm.
You can hope.
Not anymore. It's over. Um. So I actually really like this movie, like a lot. It's not like I'm even the biggest Yorgos fan, although I do enjoy his movies.
How many have you seen?
A couple,
Two?
man.
Is
Two?
this two?
Just no, three.
Have we done another one? Oh yeah, we did The Favorite. You've seen
Yeah.
three.
A Favorite is one of my favorite movies ever. But Poor Things
Favorite is
just
Favorite is so different from this.
it is. It is. But Poor Things is just a weird movie. I didn't really connect to it, although I still feel like it's a good movie. It's just not my kind of movie. But I'm interested in seeing Kinds of Kindness, seeing if that's any good.
Well, and then we got to do eventually Killing of the Sacred Deer.
And Dogtooth.
Yeah, we can do Dogtooth. That's kind of we just want
So, what's your
no one to listen to that episode.
what's your take on this film?
I liked it a lot. It's not one that like it's not one that I think is very rewatchable. I was thinking about that when I watched it the second time today. I enjoyed it the second time too, and I'm like, I don't know when's the next time I'll fire this up. But I liked it a lot, and it's similar to Under the Silver Lake. A movie that is makes me like think about it randomly for days after I watch it. That's like a huge thing, you know.
Taylor and I are still talking about it. She came into the room the other like yesterday. She was like, another reason he's the dog killer is why would the director make him imagine women barking at him every time they like reject him or deject him?
I
And
mean,
I
I
was
think
like,
it's first of all for anyone who listened to this episode first and hasn't seen Under the Silver Lake. I apologize that an hour and 7 minutes in this is happening to you, but I mean it's obvious he is Alon. Like it's so obvious.
okay, I guess
Well,
so.
thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and we both finally watched The Lobster.